Look, we should not be shutting the government down. I have consistently opposed shutdowns. In 2013, I said we shouldn't shut the government down. Indeed, I went to the Senate floor repeatedly asking unanimous consent to reopen the government.
Sir, you stood in the way of that.
Okay, that's factually incorrect.
It's not, though.
You heard it right. The man many see as the mascot of the 2013 government shutdown said, not it. This week, when my colleague Casey Hunt asked him about his role in that last government shutdown. Senator Ted Cruz said the government did not shut down because of his attempt to defund Obamacare with his Tea Party cohorts or because of his gripping rendition of green eggs and ham, but because of the Democrats. Now, there's always a blame game after the government shuts down. Last time, fingers, including many angry Republican ones, were pointed at Cruz. But it was the Democrats who lost big in the 2014 midterm elections. This November, we'll see which party loses or gains steam due to this shutdown, if it reverberates at all. The Republicans holding hands with their conservative immigration hardliners, or the Democrats who are supposed to stand up for DACA. Joining me now are two Jason Johnsons. Jason Johnson, the MSNBC political contributor who's with us from D.C., and former chief strategist for Senator Ted Cruz, Jason Johnson, who's joining us from Austin, Texas. All right, so Texas, Jason Johnson, I'm going to start with you first. Your former boss, Ted Cruz. It's so odd the way it sort of captured the attention of the country when he tried to deny that he was behind the shutdown. Why do you suppose he is moving away from something that he really championed in 2013?
So I haven't heard that entire clip. I heard what you played when you let in. I'm going to make a guess here that what he was talking about was the effort by himself and other Republicans to offer up rifle shot continuing resolutions to basically fund everything except for Obamacare in 2013. But I'm not entirely sure what point he was making. You know, the bigger issue of whether or not the party that, at least based upon perception, gets blamed for a shutdown suffers in November. I don't think there's a whole lot of evidence that they do.
I think that's a good point, Jason Johnson, who is in D.C., because in 2014, the Republicans were blamed. All the polls show that, and a lot of Republicans were mad at Ted Cruz for doing this because they felt that he had, pushed it. But Republicans gained in the midterm, so it didn't hurt them. Being the party of no was actually helpful to them. So do you think Democrats are short-sighted in worrying that they would get blamed for the current shutdown, the recent one?
Well, yeah, Joy. I mean, I think there were a lot of mistakes that the Democrats actually made. And let's be fair. Look, this is not no insult to my Mirror Universe counterpart over there, but this is not the first time Ted Cruz has used the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. He didn't have anything to do with it. We all know he was involved. But the Republican base was happy with that decision, and they voted Republicans in because they were proud of them for standing up to President Obama. What you have happening this fall could be a very, very different situation. Look, Democrats are enraged. They're excited. They're motivated. They're winning local state races that usually nobody cares about. They're flipping seats that Trump carried 18 months ago. So it looks to me like it doesn't matter if the shutdown is blamed on Republicans or Democrats. Democrats are looking at a good year. Look, it's not like people were enthusiastic about Northam and Virginia. They just wanted to vote against Trump. As long as Trump is unpopular, this is a referendum on him. Democrats win regardless of shutdown.
And, Jason Johnson, in Texas, Ted Cruz is one of the seats. It's sort of an unlikely seat the Democrats are targeting. Beto O'Rourke is running against him. But you also have one of those states in Texas that's always been on the cusp, per the pundits, of this Hispanic voter wave that could come in and could make Democrats competitive in a state like that.
Sure. With
DACA just infuriating Latino voters and maybe finally getting a lot of them to wake up to the fact that Republicans really don't want not just DACA, but, family migration, immigration at all. Do you think that Republicans are right to be nervous that even a seat that seems safe, like your former boss's seat, this shutdown can amplify those differences in a way that finally makes Democrats competitive in a place like Texas or Arizona?
Sure. So I think the issue with regard to a shutdown is what is the underlying policy position or policy issue that, again, the perception, whether true or not, is what caused the shutdown. But what we could agree upon is here it being DACA and in 2013 it being Obamacare. And the polls are pretty clear that the public across the board does not support the tactic, if you will, of shutting down the government because of DACA. And it doesn't for many issues. I believe the only issue I've seen where the public would support using that as a tactic is increasing spending on defense. But direct response to your question, I don't believe Texas is going to go blue, but I do believe that what Jason said a moment ago is true. The the Democrat base is very motivated.
Democratic.
I'm going to do that for you. The Democratic base is very very motivated. There's no question about that. And there's somewhat of an enthusiasm gap. At the same time, recent polls are showing on the generic ballot that independents and Republican leaners are moving more to the Republican Party.
Well, let's go through some of those polling numbers, Jason Johnson in D.C. So you have this poll to the other Jason Johnson, your mirror image universe, Jason Johnson. He makes a very good point that while you have 75% overwhelming support for legal status for Dreamers, when you then ask, among those who actually support that status, do you think it's worth shutting down the government over, a majority say actually no. But to your point, the base of each party seems to reward the party for saying no because it's a symbol of fight. You're just willing to fight, and that is what you get rewarded for. I wonder if, in your view, this winds up helping. This is cut 5 from my producers. Here are the vulnerable Senate seats. Most of them are Democrats. People like Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Manchin, who are really pushing Schumer to end the shutdown because they were worried about their reelect. People like Bill Nelson. Does ending the shutdown, but having made a mark for DACA, net help Democrats? Or does being a part of the party that's anti-immigration wind up hurting people like whoever's running for Jeff Flake's seat on the Republican side or Dean Heller in Nevada?
Well, here's the thing, Joy. I think it plays out differently depending on which place, right? So, look, I think those Democrats are going to be in trouble. I think Heidi Heitkamp is in trouble. McCaskill will be in trouble. They are. They're in red states. They're in states where Trump still remains popular despite what's going on. But I think the overall picture, though, we have to look at it differently. One thing that happens with a wave is, you don't know where it's going to crash. You don't know where it's going to run up to. And I think the most important number to look at, we have our polls. We have the generic ballot, which flips back and forth. But Joy, the most important number of all heading into the midterms is 25 to 26. That's the number of Republican members of Congress and the Senate who have retired. People who have said, I'm not going to spend the next 10 months trying to raise money when I know I'm going to lose because of the guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So it doesn't matter what the national polls say. Those guys are walking into their local grocery stores and food courts, and they're hearing you guys are going out of here. So I think Democrats are in danger, but Republicans are looking at decimation.
Yeah. All right. We're going to have to end this from the law firm of Johnson & Johnson. Jason Johnson and Jason Johnson. We love it. Hopefully you guys will come back and do this debate again. Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And coming up at the top.